The swings and the roller coasters in baseball are like no other. Now we've got the Toronto Blue Jays on an 0-5 run. I think they're like 5-13 or something. And I mean, it's just horrific. They're going to win 1 or 2 games, and then they're going to go on a tear. This happens in baseball all the time. And it's something that people need to focus on. When teams that are good, Tampa Bay goes out and wins, starts the season on a monster run, then I mentioned it's time to fade them. They lost some games. The one interesting thing about baseball is signal out the teams that you think are really good, and when they hit the skids, wait. Ralph and Teddy, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I want to add because I
go.
Ralph, you want to go first? Sure.
Go ahead, Teddy. Yep,
okay.
You go.
So I don't like a 10-game sample size. I hate a 10-game sample size. I hate it for NBA and I hate it for MLB. In my mind, you've already missed it 10 games in. I like to get teams right as they're morphing. I want a 2-game winning streak or a 2-game losing streak is what I'm interested in.
Yes.
And that to me that's when you jump. If you're waiting 10 games, you're not striking while the iron is hot. So I tend to look for my immediate, all right, I'm going to back this team. I'm going to fade this team. I tend to do it at a much shorter sample size than 10 games. Ralph?
Yeah, Teddy, I'm not arguing that point. But when you're looking at the whole of a team, I never look at full season stats. I never look at full month stats. I still want to know that process. So, yes, if a team is hitting well and you lost a couple games, I am just looking at those 10 games to then determine if they're making their run or if they're failing. So no argument with your point, and I'm not saying you're basing your play on that, but that's the data I look at for when I'm now going to you and looking at the shorter sample size. I really only look at the last 10 games, with the exception of rare occurrences as a big favorite, as a big dog versus lefties versus righties, where a 10-game sample size might only get you 2 games versus lefties.
Right.
I said, Prez, I went to my database and I pulled out this system, just like you talk, MLB teams are streaky. So, often you hear in football, it's different. Listen, you have a week between games. How much money did people make betting Belichick and Brady off a loss? Because you had an entire week to game plan to the next week. Baseball is not that same situation. You're in a city, you're playing the next day. So while this is only a 48% record, it's not a wow number. It's a 48% record with an average line of minus 139. So your return on investment is over 15%. And it's simply this. When a team is off a loss as a favorite of a 150 favorite or higher, and now they're anything but a 200 favorite. So I threw away 200 favorites, because obviously you have a stud on the mound if you're a 200 favorite. But MLB teams on the road, off a loss as a favorite of minus 150 or higher, under 49%, with an average line of minus 139. So that just goes to what you said. Yes, teams bounce back off streaks and get hot, but in baseball, it's clearly not an automatic to play a team off a loss as a favorite when they're on the road, in that next game.